start.
Yeah. Aseptic loosening. So failures we know are there. Debonding or loosening is frequently associated with bacterial inflammation. They form the layer. Still, aseptic loosening accounts from 15 to 30% of all the revisions. Early loosening can be a result of inadequate fixation, mechanical loss of fixation over time, or the particular debris causing the erosions. So we know that 90% of survival is there at 12 to 20 years, and it's only 10% that fail, and out of these 10%, only 2 to 3% fail early. So this is a very small fragment, and of these 2 to 3% of early failures, the 11% is because of aseptic loosening. So it is a tiny line over there in this graph. And you'll frequently wonder that why does it matter? It only matters because this is one of the preventable failures, and I'll just try to convince you through my talk that you can make efforts to prevent it. So diagnosis will be clinical, pain that is worsening on weight bearing, radiolucencies more than 2 mm with sclerotic borders, and migration of the components are the characteristics. So this is something where the component is migrating, though it is looking well fixed. This is aseptic loosening, and these are the radiolucencies. There are articles published about it that a medial tilting and anterior translation of the tibia points to aseptic loosening, but you don't need any data. It shows of its own that it is, and if you want to pick them early, you can do the CT scan or CT arthrogram, but believe me, you don't want to pick these early. You make all your efforts to kill that pain, and if it doesn't go, then only you want to make the diagnosis that something is wrong with the knee. Deep learning and automation and some bioelectric devices have been invented to pick the early aseptic loosening. So we'll look at the causes. So first is the cementing issue. We have seen it with the attuned tibia and others. Malalignment definitely contributes to it, though kinematic people will not agree with me. Osteolysis and polydebris, poor bone quality, instability, but the last two are the red markers: over-enthusiastic patient and misleading surgeons. We often talk about the patients that they want to do everything, but I tell all my patients, you have a replaced joint, so you cannot do everything. And my example is that with artificial denture, you can only chew food, you cannot crack on nuts. So we have to tell them. Cementing definitely is important. There has been studies that if the penetration into the bone is good in all the zones, they have better survival, and there are studies that if there are more the zones with less than 2 mm penetration, increased involvement of radiolucencies at bone cement, implant cement interface, and increased tibial barus by 1.5 degrees. All these contribute to early failures, though greater zone of radiolucent lines at the bone cement interface does not account to that. So this was something, my own patient, she had this ankle osteoarthritis. I told her to get it fixed first. She refused. She said, no, I don't have pain there, I only have a knee pain. She later came to me with a collapse and we had to revise it. So, but it is always good to like retrospect and look at your own x-rays. So when I looked at my own x-ray, something was wrong on day one. There was a radiolucent line at the implant cement interface. And this is something that will lead to aseptic loosening and early failure of your implants. And when we talk about radiolucent lines at the bone cement interface, it is not these lines that you can see. This is very typical of infective loosening. So those radiolucent lines will be with the sclerotic margins. Next, definitely the implant issue or the cementing issues has been there. Attune has changed its tibia, we all know that. So we have just devised or observed and learned this thing that if you apply the cement, especially on the tibial base plate in a more liquid form, it holds well. And there is lots of debate about applying the cement on both surfaces or only the implant. If you look at this study, there is a difference of penetration by 0.5 mm if you apply it on the surface. The negative thing is that if you are applying it on the surface, you create a layer between it. When you are touching your gloves and everything over there, you can change the gloves, but still there can be a fatty layer that can like cause issues with bonding of the cement on both the sides. Next is BMI. We all know that BMI more than 41 is associated with early failures because of aseptic loosening. Even in aligned knees, it is worse in varus knees, but it is most dreaded in valgus knees. The failure rate increases from 1% to 7% because of aseptic loosening. Systemic review, stemmed tibia, there was a systemic review, and out of 6,000 knees, they just concluded that it lowers the risk of aseptic loosening if you stem the tibia in obese patients, but we need better literature for more documentation. Implant specific, we have all seen the Exotec failure. That was a problem with the packing material that led to massive osteolysis and aseptic loosenings. Alignments, many people will not agree. Most of the references are inconclusive. They'll just say that four patient had this, or it does not provide long-term benefit if you have like plus minus 3 degrees of alignment. But if you look at the studies in depth, you will find that all the collapses, like in this study, the medial collapse or the aseptic loosening was more associated with bone collapse when the tibia was in varus and in high BMI patients. Like in this study, the article states that 7 degrees varus tibia has no consequences in long term. But if you look at the aseptic loosening, the tibias with 88-degree angle, they had only one aseptic loosening, and in tibias with 85 degrees of angle, they had 4 loosening. So you can put it 4 times the risk or 400% the risk of failure also. It's just author's choice what they are trying to tell you. But if you are putting your implants in angles, and if you are trying to compensate a wrong angle in one implant with the opposite angle in the other implant, it again increases the risk. So the failure is more likely if tibia is not at 90 degrees, if you are like trying to match the one implant with other, and the BMI we have already discussed. Osteoporosis is the last part. So we often talk about that in osteoporosis you should add stems, and there is a risk of loosening. I have personally never used a stem in osteoporotic patient, and this is one of my examples. This patient was so osteoporotic that when I was trying to put in the rod, it punctured the cortex and went out from one side, the blunt intramedullary rod. We still did a simple implants in this patient, and he has been on follow-up for 15 years. Another risk factor that is associated with osteoporosis, definitely PGI is high and aseptic loosening is more. Bisphosphonates, there are inconclusive studies, but what I can tell you is that if you add bisphosphonate during or after the surgery, there is definitely slightly better outcome as far as the overall patient functional outcome and migration is concerned. And this is what we all see and do, patients doing bhangra and all this stuff. I strongly recommend to tell your patients that you cannot afford to fall, because the normal patient falls, his bone will heal, but if you fall, there will be debonding at some spot and you can have a loose implant. So we have to guide our patients well, and that is one factor that in my opinion influences the aseptic loosening most. Thank you.